Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit us!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hey, happy frosty Thursday, everybody, and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio here. Man, we could have a larger audience than normal. I would have surmised there are lots of people at home today. As I can look outside of the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios window here and see a sheet of ice covering everything and then a little bit of snow on top of it. Now the snow is supposed to come more now, I believe. Is that correct, John? I know you're down south of me, but
yeah, I believe up in Bloomington, you're all going to get some blizzard-like snow from what I remember seeing.
That's the funny part. It's like this stuff here. This is just the warm-up situation. Let's just throw a sheet of ice under everything just to start everything off. And then we're going to come along and dump a bunch of snow on top of it so it can't melt. Great. Lovely. But yeah, I have no idea what the roads are like, to be honest with you, because I've not been out. I can't imagine they're great. The ice situation is usually bad. Plus, the trucks, they usually put that brine down and all that stuff. Well, it was raining. They couldn't get out to treat the roads. And I don't know if there was a point where they could do it while it was going on. Who knows? But if you don't have to go anywhere, stay home and listen to Indiana Sports Beat Radio right now. Looking forward to Dustin Schutte joining us here in a little bit. As always, we'll talk to Chris Denari, Matt Taylor. Who am I missing? Kyle Neddenriep. Anybody else, John?
Sorry to pop in late, but I think you hit everybody, so I think you're good.
Good. Last night, let's see, we had men's basketball. The scores up. I did not watch a game last night as Purdue. That's not true. I saw some of those early ones. Purdue had little trouble at Minnesota getting that road win, 88-73 over the Golden Gophers. Wisconsin traveled to Illinois. Number 11, Wisconsin traveled to Illinois. Illinois had no trouble with getting past Wisconsin, who is currently a number 1 seed team. So now you've got Illinois coming into Bloomington on Saturday for Indiana to play. So win over Illinois, of course, great for their resume. Wisconsin will be coming to Bloomington shortly thereafter as well. I thought that there was one other Big Ten score. These are top 25, so I've got to go to a different category. Gee whiz. Nope, those were the only 2 Big Ten games. I thought there was a third one, but not. So, other games last night in the top 25 involved Kentucky getting by Vanderbilt, 77-70. Houston over Tulane, number 6 Houston over Tulane, 73-62. I already mentioned number 18 Illinois beating Wisconsin, 80-67. It was number 12 Villanova traveling to number 24 Marquette, and Marquette gets the win, 83-73. Xavier and Butler, great game there. The Musketeers managed to squeak that one out by a bucket, 68-66. Hope everyone's having a great start to the day. Force says that the Indiana needs to attack Kofi. He's foul pro. Michelle, Illinois dominated, but Wisconsin shot terribly. Jared says, everyone, be safe out. Yep, absolutely. Be safe out. If you are out there, be safe, because I can look outside and see the trees that are just coated in ice. Rained all day yesterday. I'm like, and then the temperatures last night, it was still 43 degrees. I was in town 6, 7 o'clock. Then all of a sudden it dropped like a rock off of a mountain. Just started going over. Tim, IU ends up 21st nationally and 4th Big Ten after signing day. We'll talk about that. We'll hear from Tom Allen. And mentions IU football loses another player, and I think that was Devin Matthews, a defensive back from Plant City High School. I noticed that's where Tom Allen used to coach too. But as they move forward, they got their, I think only 2 signed yesterday. That's the late signing period. They already had a 19-man class, I believe. The quarterback and then an offensive lineman, I believe, yesterday. So not a lot going on, but we'll hear from Tom Allen as we met with him yesterday and all across the Big Ten. Well, Jim Harbaugh, lots of news with Jim Harbaugh. Will he? And apparently the last, there's a report that in Yahoo Sports that Jim Harbaugh is staying at Michigan. He's been flirted with and apparently had an interview with the Minnesota Vikings on Wednesday. And his name had been linked to the Dolphins. But according to this report from Sam Cooper and Yahoo, Harbaugh informed school officials that he will be back in Ann Arbor for the 22 season. ESPN is reporting. Multiple media outlets reported the LA Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Connell will be the Vikings' new head coach. He is currently preparing for the Super Bowl where the Rams will face the Cincinnati Bengals the day after my birthday on February 13th. And cannot officially be named to the job yet. So there's that. So if you're I'm sure we don't have too many Michigan fans listening, but it was curious to see what Harbaugh was going to do, because would you blame him for leaving? I wouldn't have, after, they kind of put him through the ringer last year and made him redo his contract. He took less money, and now he could have kind of just flew him the bird and said, he last year he wins the Big Ten. He beats Ohio State after they did that. So he could have just flew him the bird and walked out if he wanted to, but he's staying to see things through. He'd probably use that as a little bargaining chip to get back what they took from him, and then maybe a little bit more. Kind of how those things work in sports. If you follow U.S. men's national team, they got a win over Honduras. And barring a very bizarre change of fortune, they will qualify for the 2022 World Cup. A chatter over the weather and decision to play in St. Paul, Minnesota dominated the headlines. Well, yeah, why would you? Honduras, can you imagine a Honduran team playing in Minnesota? So there was that. The American players brushed it off, whether or not it was a good idea to purposely host a world. This would be great for Mike DeCourcy on Tuesday to ask him, did the U.S. purposely do this to try to get an advantage? I don't blame them, but if they've fallen to that bad, holy crap. I don't understand what's going on with the men's soccer team. Why can they not? They've got some of the best athletes in the world. Use them. Yesterday, we met with Tom Allen about the recruiting class. Let's hear what he had to say.
Yeah, I think that, the first part of that, I would say efficiently is the answer to be able to find a new running backs coach. And so I think that, that process is obviously underway in a big way. And so I don't expect this to drag out very long. Definitely have guys that you already have on a short list that you want to be able to talk to and bring to campus and get in front of our staff. So that process is going on right now. And so I don't expect this to be dragged out very long. And in regards to his sons, just the two young men that are here with Dylan Jr. and Dustin, and just the guys, just knowing them and talking to them and just understanding and that they chose to come to Indiana and they want to be here, and this is their home, and they chose to play here, and they're here with us now, and that to me is a testament to them wanting to be part of this program, and yeah, I've had a situation happen previously to my career, not exactly like this, but in some ways where you had a departure of a father that I was coaching his son now, and so it's just once again relationships, and sitting down one-on-one, face-to-face, and talking and being able to know that that part hasn't changed, and they're their own person in regards to why they chose to come here, and that's why I think even for I think about myself with my own son when he chose to come here. I always wanted to make sure that he was coming here because he wanted to come to Indiana, not because I was coaching here. And I know Coach McCullough feels the same way. As now a dad of two of our players and one that's committed to us. So I just know that that's one thing. It's all relationship driven, and guys that they have strong relationship with guys on our staff, and that's part of it. And they have strong relationship with their teammates, and those things are very important. So it's definitely unique without question, and definitely wish Coach McCullough nothing but great things in his future. And so I just have his boys here. Glad they're here, glad they want to be here, and excited about their development and their future in this program. So, Dustin obviously made a choice to be a big part of this class and help us recruit guys, and he was actively involved in recruiting his teammates that are here now and guys that will be coming in June, and a huge part of that came in every weekend, spent time with us, and came in on the visits and helped us recruit, and was really just dove into it, So there's no question, and that's why it really didn't surprise me with his decision to be able to stay. But you know what? That's a testament to him and what he wants to be a part of.
There's Tom Allen talking about the situation with Dylan McCullough leaving and his sons staying. And I know that everybody wants to talk about the rumor of why McCullough left. But yet that has not been shown to be anything other than a rumor. It's not that it couldn't have been true or can't be true, but that has not come from any reliable source. So just because the rumor's out there does not make it true. And part B of that, Dylan McCullough did not leave for Central Michigan. He didn't go to Northern Illinois. He went to Notre Dame. Okay. So there's that. Did he leave? Why did it play into his feelings? It could have, but that does not mean that it did. And he let his sons are staying here. So if it was that bad, do you think that he would advise his sons to stay here? So I think that people like to get caught up in the rumor mill. As reporters, we can't do that. It's not that I don't acknowledge that possibility is out there, but I can't sit here and say that's why he left, especially when he went to Notre Dame. Damn, he didn't take a step down. He took a big step up. He's going to be an important part of a new staff at one of the premier programs in all of college football. So, not exactly a lateral step or anything other than that. And at the end of the day, if that reason was correct, Dustin, come on in, brother. I was just sitting here talking about the possibility of why the rumor of Dylan McCullough's exit is flying around, and if it's reached you, then really Are you familiar with the rumor?
Yeah, that he's going to be leaving for the same position at Notre Dame.
No, he already did that.
Oh, then I'm not familiar with the other rumor.
Yeah, just why? The rumor's why is because the offensive line and problems there. Yet that's totally a fan-based rumor. Everybody says, "Oh no, I know." I'm like, okay, well, how do you know? Where it's not come from any place inside, to my knowledge.
That's number one, and the other part is his two sons, Steele McCullough Jr. and Dason McCullough, are both sticking at Indiana. So you would think if the thoughts that they couldn't win, or that they wouldn't be successful and be able, those kids are capable of getting to the NFL. So if he didn't think that was a possibility at Indiana, don't you think with the transfer portal, maybe they don't go to Notre Dame, but I think that they would be going someplace else.
I would as well.
I'm not going to say that that's right or wrong.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to say it didn't play into his thinking, but I don't know that it did. Again, because for the Braves, I said his sons are staying, and he didn't leave for Central Michigan or Northern Illinois. He went to Notre Dame, man.
Right.
So I think John is telling us we have to take a break, I'm assuming.
Yep.
He is. All right, let's do that. Well, Dustin Schutte's with us. We'll be back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Brought to you by...
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration...
I'm glad I already muted your mic so it doesn't pick it up, which is funny.
Me too. What's up, brother?
Not much, man. Sorry, I
That's all right.
I was having a cocktail hour with these last night, and it was one of those where you have too many, but you didn't realize it because I didn't stand up for 2 or 3 hours.
That's standing up can be
Me
rough.
and another guy at the
And then I was like, I had too much, and then I woke up at like 8:20, and I'm like, oh, I do have something to do today.
Here, you haven't seen this. Well, I better not show it. My finger.
Oh, what happened?
You showed it before.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think I've seen it.
I know you haven't.
Every time he goes on a trip, he hurts himself.
What did you do?
Trying to open a window where I was staying in Florida because it was just super hot in the room. And lifted, I got it up about 4 or 5 inches, and it just slammed back down. It slipped out of my fingers, but it was just weight. Didn't hold itself up, and it caught that finger with it. And it felt like about 50-pound block just coming down on it.
Oh, God.
You should break your neck.
I'm guessing everybody in that hotel room heard the F word.
No, I didn't say a word when it happened. Because I was more concerned the fact that I had to reach back down with my left hand backwards and lift the window up and get my hand out.
Oh.
And then I was more concerned with dealing with what was going on with it.
Ugh.
Walk to the emergency room.
Dustin, do you enjoy having your Twitter partially off right now?
Oh, my God, yes.
What does that mean, partially off?
So I took Twitter completely off my phone. So the only time I look at Twitter is when I'm working, when I have to. If I'm not working, I don't look at it anymore. My screen time went from 10.5 hours a day down to under an hour and a half.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm afraid what mine is.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee it's more than that already. But I'm afraid if I took it off, what am I going to miss?
Right.
I guess
that's what I fear is missing something.
See, if it was, I'll probably bring it back onto my phone when football season starts, maybe even during spring ball. But there's nothing like we have a guy on our staff on basically till 10 o'clock. So I can go to our website and see what I missed. And
ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to a warm Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, looking outside at a frosty coat. It's not the case for you there, Mr. Schutte, but we've got ice covered by a little bit of snow, and that was just the pregame. That's the pregame. Now we've got a break, and we've got a big band of just for real snow coming at us now.
I was talking with my best friend in Logan Sport the other night, last night, and he had already shoveled. He had already shoveled 4 times, and I mean it continued to pile up. He was showing me pictures throughout the day. He would go out and shovel, and 20 minutes later there would be another 3 inches of snow on the back deck, so we'd have to go out and shovel it again. So I do not envy you.
Get 12 to 15 or something like that up there.
It's raining here, but it's also 62 degrees, so I'm not going to complain.
Shut up. Yesterday was the opening of the late signing period, which is very anticlimactic for the signing period now with the early one. Indiana, I think, had 2 total yesterday, the quarterback and I think an offensive lineman. So, yeah, it's almost very anticlimactic. Anything big? What was the biggest thing you saw happen?
I mean, you had some 5-star players commit. I think the funniest thing that happened was one of the players that Brian Kelly shared a video of where he was dancing with him. You know, you would think that kid would then commit to LSU. That kid committed to Alabama, so I thought that was funny. You look at from the Big Ten perspective, I don't know, like Michigan State got commitments from 2 kids in the 2023 class. That's pretty significant. Minnesota added a 2023 prospect. Nebraska got flipped a running back from TCU, and then they flipped a 4-star wide receiver from Georgia Tech. But other than that, it was really, really quiet. Like there were no major storylines, and that's kind of how this is set up now. Most of the work is done during the early signing period, and you have very little left. Coaches put a heavy emphasis, and now most of them are starting to work on that 2023 class.
Yeah, like I said, not much going on here as well. Now you've got Indiana has to go to work with a very, very new staff in the key places. This spring, you're going to have a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator. We don't know who the starter is, of course, but you have the new transfer from Missouri, who is a lot of people think that he will earn that starting job, but we'll see between him and Tuttle. But that he's got to learn the system. But what system is it? Everyone has to learn a new system. Is a new system being installed? What's it going to be like? So more change for Indiana on the football side of things, and we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because we're going to have a brand new offensive coordinator. You've got a new defensive coordinator. I know Tom Allen's going to have his hand in the defense now, so it'll probably look similar to what it did probably with when Kane Womack was running the defense. I don't think there's going to be much change. I think those 2 guys were pretty much on the same page for most of the 2 years that they were there or that he was there. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. And the one thing that you have to do, I think, if you're Indiana, you do have to do it, is you've got to establish a run game. I mean, I don't remember how frequently we talked about how poorly the run game was last season, and you've got to get better on the offensive line. You've got to get better at the running back room. But also, if you're able to develop a quarterback and keep a quarterback healthy, that should open up some of the run game. So, you know, it's hard to nitpick, but they just have to get better all around offensively. I still contest that the defense was pretty good. It just got worn down because it had to be on the field so damn much last year. So I still think that this will be solid. I know they've lost some key guys. Jawan Burgess just hit the transfer portal. Reese Taylor is now at Purdue. You've had some other guys transfer out. But I still think the defense is going to be very good. It's now on the offense to put some points on the board and figure out ways to move the football on the ground and through the air.
Absolutely, and we'll see what they can do. That news I mentioned earlier before you joined us, Jim Harbaugh apparently staying with Michigan, a report coming out. I don't know, not a big surprise. I think that he kind of wants to stick through. I think he was kind of PO'd a little bit with what they put him through with his contract renegotiation the year before. Then he comes back, beats Ohio State, wins the Big Ten. And I said, he could fly him. He could just flip him, the bird and say, I'm going to NFL, boys, and get my money back that you took away, or use that as a bargaining chip to get the money back that they took from him and then some. But I haven't heard anything about a new contract or anything like that.
Well, he's definitely going to get one. I mean, he's not going back to Michigan, and it's not that he won't get one. I want to disagree with you on the thing that it was on the comment that it wasn't surprising, but I agree and I disagree. I think after the season he had, it's not surprising to me that he is returning to Michigan. At the same time, the way he flirted with Minnesota in particular, the way his name was rumored with the Las Vegas Raiders, which I would have been weird to see Jim Harbaugh out in Las Vegas drinking ice cold milk at the lunch buffet. And then you have the Miami Dolphins were rumored to have interest in him as well. So the way, just the way, I mean, he went to a second interview on National Signing Day. Like, to me, that indicated that this was a done deal. He's got the job. It's just a matter of crossing some T's and dotting some I's. So it was a very weird way as to how this all went down. I thought for sure he was gone. But, I mean, this is, whether or not you like it, this is a good move for Michigan, because who are they going to be able to hire at this stage in the game? I mean, you were looking at Matt Rule from the Carolina Panthers, the former Baylor coach, or reaching out to Luke Fickell, and it's probably very unlikely that Luke Fickell, an Ohio State guy, would have taken that job. So it was. I don't think it was ideal for Michigan, but at the same time, it's a great thing that he is returning.
Yeah, I think it's good for the Big Ten too.
Yeah, it is.
The Big Ten needs all of the quote-unquote stars right now. I think that in this time in college sports, you need your stars. You need your star teams. You need your Ohio States, your Michigans. You need Nebraska to pick it up on their end. But you need Wisconsin and Iowa and Penn State's. You need those marquee teams, because that's, people want to see marquee games.
Right.
It's just a fact. So the Big Ten needs to keep that just for its own shining star.
And I'd have to go back and look. This is the first time with Jim Harbaugh staying, there was no coaching turnover in the Big Ten on the football side this year. From all head coaches that were the head coach in 2021 are back in 2022. I mean, barring something crazy that happens in the offseason.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual as well. It's just on the back end of this weird season. And I did notice speaking of this is kind of a different subject, but coming off that weird year, that the NCAA earned $1.15 billion in 2021 as revenue returns to normal for them. They took that big hit and yada yada because of the COVID pandemic, but the NCAA generated $1.1 billion, billions and billions in revenue in 2021, returning to normal after the cancellation of the men's basketball tournament because of that pandemic. So most of that revenue comes from its contract with CBS and Turner for the rights to televise the basketball tournament. So the tournament was and will be, it's the bread and butter, baby, of the NCAA. And they don't have that for football, because football's is separate. The NCAA has virtually nothing to do with football championships, right?
Right. I mean, isn't that crazy to think about? It's at the college level.
I don't get that. I'm like, why do you have two different? I don't understand how you have two different entities in college athletics running that have nothing to do with each other. It makes no sense to me.
No, I don't understand it either. Like, I'd have to go and look. I'd have to do some deep diving into see how that separation came about, because it used to be a big deal. It used to be a pretty collaborative partnership, I think. And then, I mean, just the way the college football playoff and these bowl games and the way everything operates, like there's certain rules from the NCAA that apply to college football, and then there's other rules that simply don't. So it doesn't make any sense. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess it works for every level, I believe, up until the FBS. Like I think FCS is pretty much under the NCAA domain, their championship.
Yeah, it's who can, I can't figure it all out, but there you go. So the money's back, baby. It didn't take long.
No.
So yeah, the people want the games.
Speaking
of games, there will be a big one Saturday as Illinois pays a visit to Bloomington, Indiana. Basketball in Illinois with a big win last night. Mentioned that earlier. And so they beat Wisconsin 80-67 over in Champaign. So Wisconsin smarting from that. Wisconsin had just been moved to the one line, I noticed in the bracketology. That probably won't hurt them too badly. It's a road loss to a top 20 team.
Great team,
so it's not going to hurt them. So now Indiana gets the opportunity, though, to put that on their resume as Illinois pays a visit. They need that to continue to bolster their resume because they're sitting on that 8 line. I don't expect them to stay there. If this team just continues to just play the way they are right now, they're going to move up at least a seed line, potentially 2. They would have to really go on a tear, I think, to get up to a 5. They'd have to virtually be inside the top 20, which I'm not saying it's not possible, but their remaining, schedule is daunting. You've got winnable games at home, but you've also got some very challenging road games and going to places like Michigan State.
And it's going to be tough just this weekend alone. I mean, if you watch that game last night with Kofi Coburn, I mean, he was unguardable. 37 points, 12 rebounds. I think he was 16 of 19. He made 5 of 9 from the free throw line, or 6 of 9. Like, he was shooting free throws, not great, but at a better clip than he normally does. I mean, and the way he's so dominant inside, it opens up their perimeter shooting. I mean, this is a team that they struggled out of the gate. Part of that was because Kofi was serving a 3-game suspension, and they've had some illnesses and COVID situations and stuff. But I mean, this team looks like what we thought they could be when the season started, and they look like a championship contender.
Yeah, and I think that bodes well for Indiana when the next time they play Wisconsin. The first time they had that 22-point, but they didn't know how to win. They didn't know how to take advantage of that, because I don't think Wisconsin obviously is made to deal with an inside presence, a commanding inside presence. Right. Well, now you're going to double that up when they play Indiana, when you have Race and Trace in there, and Lace Thompson's perimeter shooting, if it continues to improve, that will really carve things up for them, moving guys in and out. So Indiana in a lot better position now than they were when they played Wisconsin last time, which, again, that game's coming up a few games down the road. But just looking at why Wisconsin lost that game, I think it bodes well for the Hoosiers. But now they have to take on Kofi Coburn. I'm sure he's gained a ton of confidence in that game. Big 37-point game.
Yep.
But again, he was not facing the interior presence that he's going to this Saturday.
Right. And you saw, there are times when you can take him out of the game. Purdue did a good job of it. Last month, I don't remember what the date was, but when they went inside and he was virtually a non-factor. I mean, they got him in foul trouble, and they've got the 2 big bodies. So if you can get in front of him, if you can deny him the basketball, or if you can, play really good defense on him, then he's not so good to the point that he's just going to score at will no matter who's defending him. So it's going to be a true test for Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson. I think you've got to switch a lot. I think you've got to put a lot of fresh faces, because his body, he can just punish you in the post, and I think he can wear guys down. And so I think having some sort of rotation where you're bringing in a lot of different guys to defend him, Even Michael Durr. I want to say Coney Durr, but that's the Minnesota defensive back. Bringing in Michael
played
Durr
for a couple games. He hasn't played for a couple games. We haven't seen him, so that's a question mark. Is he in the doghouse? Has it been matchups? What's the situation?
I just think when you think about, he didn't play great against Purdue, but he did enough to get them that win. Like he caused enough problems for Travion Williams and Zach Edey. I think he could. I'm not saying he needs to play 25 minutes, but if he can come in for 8 to 10 minutes and just give Trace Jackson Davis a breather, Race Thompson a breather, and take on some of the hits that they're going to take from Kofi Coburn, I think that would bode well. But like I said, he could be in the doghouse. I don't know. I just think that getting some sort of rotation there, putting fresh bodies on him, is what's going to help them win that game.
We'll certainly look forward to it. It ought to be a very good ball game. A noon contest at Simon Scott Assembly Hall on Saturday. Looking forward to that. UConn is forced to pay former basketball coach Kevin Ali $11 million. So good for him. We've got lots more coming up. Right after this, you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends at Andy Moore Honda. Make sure if you're in the market for a new automobile, you go see Andy Moore Honda Bloomington. They've got the best deals around. Also, our good friends at Southern Stone Restaurant, located at Patterson and Rogers, where you can find the Inside Indiana basketball with Don Fisher and Mike Woodson each Monday at 7:05. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Sports on television.
See how I snuck that in?
I figured, I was like, I bet he'll do both of them right here. We didn't have Matt Taylor, obviously. That was his segment. Not sure where he's at, but oh well. This should be Kyle Neddenriep coming up, though.
He's probably taking a break.
Well, I figured he'd come on and talk Super Bowl.
Well, that's not till next week, though, right?
Oh, that's right. That is next week. I keep forgetting they take a week off. It's Pro Bowl weekend.
Yep. And nobody cares.
Yeah, no one. That's probably the least. No one cares. That's the only All-Star game no one really cares about, I feel like.
I think they need to do something different.
I'm trying to think of what they would do.
Who, the NFL?
You're like a celebrity all-star game like the NBA does.
Leave it alone.
A pro-am. This week is a pro-am, isn't it, Pebble Beach?
I don't know. I'm reading about Trent Sisley.
Five Big Ten games this weekend. On Saturday, I should say.
I know, it's a lot of games.
There really aren't any good ones, though. I mean, Illinois, Indiana's about it.
And it's at noon.
I guess if Michigan plays.
I'm getting sick of these late games. We really haven't had that many of them, but it feels like we have. Here's Mr.
Don't take many.
Well, Tuesday it's a 9 p.m. tip, John, against Northwestern.
Tuesday, great.
What
That'll
crap?
Be a late post-game show. Jim, are you going to Chicago for that game, or are you staying in town?
Yes.
You're going? Okay.
Yeah, I probably will.
That will be a late night then.
That sucks.
Good morning, Kyle.
Hello, Kyle. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you guys?
Great. I'm home and warm.
You guys got snow down there?
More ice right now than snow. There's a little covering of the snow on top of the ice. The snow's on its way later on, I believe.
Yeah.
How much are you all supposed to get? Like 12?
I don't know. They said 8 to 12 inches, but it's not anywhere close to that right now. So I always have my doubts.
Yeah.
I think it's coming down. It's pretty good right now.
Oh. Number one, Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by RE/MAX Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to the Frosty Thursday edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Jim Coyle with you, Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition, and we're joined by Kyle Neddenriep of the Indy Star. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Hey, good, fellas. How you guys doing?
Good. It's going to be a rough couple of days for high school sports, it looks like. I expect there could be some cancellations on the offing.
Yeah, I was going to try to get to a game tonight, but I don't know that, the one I'm covering probably not going to happen, and I don't know if any of them really are. I think it's going to be a lot of games this was an odd week because a lot of the boys' games were moved to Thursday because girls' sectionals are this week. Friday and Saturday night, so they have a lot of Thursday games and a lot of Saturday afternoon games this week. So it was kind of an odd schedule for the boys anyway. So I think a lot of the games tonight will either be moved to next week, or if you weren't playing Saturday, play Saturday afternoon. So it was kind of setting up that way anyway. I don't know if a lot of the snow is starting to come down pretty good now on top of that ice, and then that'll make just kind of looking this morning, it looked like a lot of wrecks and, the cars sliding and stuff like that. So I can't imagine they'll put a lot of school buses on the road later today.
Yeah, I wouldn't think. Ross points out, at least we have UCLA and Arizona tonight. So there we go. Some West Coast basketball. We'll throw that in there. We can use all that. I was reading your article on Trent Sisley. The Sisley name, of course, has been around for a little bit, but man, these guys have really kind of made a name for themselves in the last couple of years, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's Blake was more of a Indian All-Star last year, of course, and I think he scored 1,500 points, and then went to Evansville where he's a freshman now, and he's playing on the team now. But he was more of kind of a back to the basket, traditional, post a little bit more, who could shoot. Trent is like a 6'7" guard as a freshman who's super athletic and handles the ball, plays a perimeter, can also go inside. And he's just super competitive, has a fire to him that's a little bit different, I think. And, really impressed, watching him. I haven't, watched him in the preseason some, and then just kind of watching online, throughout the year. And, he's 19 points, over 9 rebounds a game, playing at a really high level already as a freshman and shooting the ball. I think the one question was about his outside shooting, and he's really shot the ball pretty well from the perimeter already this year. So, IU and Purdue offered him before he even played a game in high school. And, I think he's living up to the promise of what he, was projected to do, and probably even more so, if that's possible so far this year. So I'd put him and, the kid from Fishers, Jalen Harrelson, who's, kind of similar, really. He's a 6'6", 6'7" guard, I would say. I'd classify him as that, who can also go inside. And, those two guys, man, it's really fun to see what they've accomplished so far and what they project off in the future as too.
That first description you gave when you just started, if we could, whatever the period was when you stopped, if you could take that out and put that in front of college coaches, there would be a stampede of every coach within, I don't know how many, wherever, to get here to see that, because a 6'7" freshman guard with the skills that you just talked about, I mean, that just doesn't come along very often.
No, yeah, it's very rare. And really, when I was down there before the season, I was kind of, how do you want to, write about this kid? I mean, you don't want to put undue pressure on him. And I think just by writing about him kind of, puts him more in a spotlight and whatever. But, I really get the sense that like he's not really into that. He doesn't really care about the outside stuff. And I know he's 15 and you're still kind of figuring out everything, but he's so motivated and just works his butt off. I think that's the thing I took away the most of was he's very driven to be the best he can be, and I think that's probably the best thing about him, in addition to all these other skills he has, is he doesn't let up, and I think that's going to bode well for his future, and all the other obvious things he can do on the court are great too, but he's just very motivated. And if he keeps that type of mentality, and no reason to think he won't, he's just going to keep getting better. The one thing like I mentioned, he had to kind of redo his shot, his outside shot. He would kind of pull it from his left hip, before, and he really, as a middle schooler, he wasn't having to shoot a whole lot anyway. He'd get to the basket, and, I think I had in the story, he had 28 dunks as an 8th grader. And, so, I mean, that's pretty rare for an 8th grader.
I think that's what I had. I have to go back and check my notes.
You're within 28 of that anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. But he just really, he's so athletic, but he had to redo his shot, really worked on that throughout the months leading up to his freshman year. And, I think he's shooting. The goal for his coach, Nate Hawkins, said, let's have you shoot 40%. Yeah, let's make that your goal from 3. And I think right now he's 37 point something from 3. So he's right there, and that's something I was curious about, how he would shoot. He didn't shoot a ton, maybe, 2 per game, or, maybe a shade over 2 per game. But still, that's a pretty good percentage. If you're shooting 37%, I think anybody would probably live with that.
Having an older brother, Brent, that's already in college, gone through the process, gone through the All-Star process, and the notoriety and all that, has to help him immensely as well. I'm sure, and as his brother, as you can see, has helped him with advice, but that has to be a great advantage to him to help navigate, because that's not easy as a kid, navigating all this stuff, people coming at you, congratulating you. And as a freshman in high school, oh my God, I cannot imagine what a punk I was as a freshman in high school.
Yeah, I think his brother, I talked to his brother last year, Blake, about what, because I even as an 8th grader, I heard about Trent. I knew, who he was anyway. I hadn't seen him play, but, you heard about this kid coming up who was like this phenom. And, so I was asking Blake, and, sometimes older brothers can be, he's, whatever. But, he was like, man, I wish I could play 1 year with him, because, what a, fun player he is. And, they I think would have probably fed off each other pretty well, because it's kind of an inside outside type thing, and what a duo that would be. So he was a little disappointed he had missed out on 1 year by 1 year of playing with his brother. But, he was saying he admitted, he's way more athletic than me at that age. He's way better ball handler and all those things. And Blake was, really, not to diminish him, I mean, he's a really good player at Heritage Hills. And like I said, he scored, I think, 1,500 something points. So, and he was playing early on in his career as a freshman too. But, just different types of players. And I think, even their parents said it in the story, the different kind of personalities. Blake is he's a guy who can, go fishing for a weekend and he'll be fine with that. And Trent is not, he's just kind of singularly focused on basketball. And, Trent talked about, how they would, during the pandemic, play one-on-one, in the outdoor courts, full court, to stay in shape. And, that really kind of helped him too, to learn, like, how do I play against a guy who's 6'8" and can block my shots, and, make him work on his perimeter game a little more even. So he didn't win many of those games, but he at least, played a lot against his brother. And, that can only help you, obviously. So, yeah, I think that connection with Blake has definitely helped Trent. And also his dad played at Heritage Hills. He's played at Southeast Missouri State back in the day. And he was a really good player too, and coached at Heritage Hills. And he got out of it when Blake was entering high school right around then. And it's kind of stayed around the program, and he teaches and as a, in the school system, and then helps coach. So, he's still around there too. And him and Trent are a lot alike, and he takes him to the gym all the time. And, so they have a good connection as well. And that's been a big part of his progression too.
He didn't play for Steve Alford down at Southeast Missouri State, did he?
That's Southwest Missouri State.
Oh, okay.
You got to get that right. That's where I went to school.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I went to Missouri
thought he
State.
was at Southeast. I'll be darned. I thought it was Evan. Huh. Very cool. It may have been the same timeline, though. It's kind of along that.
Steve was there in 90, I want to say 95 to 99, which is when, I was graduated a year later, but yeah, they went to the Sweet 16 in 99.
Speaking of recruiting, his brother went to Evansville, obviously, so no allegiance between Indiana and Purdue there. What are the other offers that he's getting or has received since then? Any other Big Ten offers right now?
Just Purdue and IU are at this point. I think most schools probably wait to see him again in the spring and summer on the AIU circuit. And actually, the day I was down there, Dane Fife was there watching him, and they ended up offering, I think it was, I don't know, 3 weeks later or something like that. And Matt Painter had been in there a couple of weeks before I was there, and they offered him actually that night. So, two really big offers out of the gate, and he's getting. It's not even worth listing all the schools who are recruiting him. It's just a wide range right now. But yeah, I don't know. I think it could be an in-state battle, really. I mean, you never know how these things progress over the years, but. It's such a long way off till he would actually get to college, but I could see that becoming a 2-horse race, and then maybe you have some of those national programs come in too to compete. But he seems like a kid who would like to play in the state, but you never know. I mean, that could change depending on who's recruiting you and who what kind of connection you make with that coaching staff. I always thought Kyle Guy would be an in-state guy, and he ended up going to Virginia and having a great experience. He
would have been, from what I understand, if certain particular situations did not change that. So I think that was mitigated by other circumstances.
It was.
So what else is? So he's got to go through 3 more years of this. Who else? There's so many kids out there right now, and I look at Indiana's recruiting. It's kind of taking a national recruiting split along with the in-state, where I think before it was more, they tried to be more in-state. I think now it's going to be split equally, just the best in Indiana and the best elsewhere. It's what I think that they'll be doing. What are your thoughts on Indiana's recruiting? What do you think that they're going to be with the staff that they have now, with all of the relationships, the far-reaching relationships they have?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be that way. I mean, you can't just say we're going to keep everybody in state, and I mean that's just not I know people say that, or you got to get everybody.
They would like that.
Yeah, it's not really a feasible recruiting philosophy, I don't think. I mean, you go get the best kids you can get, and if they're, wherever they're from. I mean, and then to me, it's about, it's somewhat about having connections. It's also about figuring out who fits your program. I mean, look at what Matt Painter's done. I watched almost that whole game last night against Minnesota, and you look around and there's you got guys from Indianapolis, you got, Newcastle, you got Zionsville, whatever, all over the state. But you also have a 7'4" guy from Canada and other guys who fit the, different places on the court who are from outside of Indiana. So I think you always have to, look at what's going to fit your program the best and not worry about where they're coming from necessarily. But yeah, it always helps, I think, from probably more than anything from a perspective of someone looking in on your program. Well, how are you doing with in-state recruiting? It does matter to a certain extent, but if you're going to the Final Four, people aren't going to care if you have where your kids are coming from. I don't think. I mean, to me, it's sort of an overblown thing to some extent, I think. But I do get, if you miss on a ton of guys who are from your state, and Tom Crean, look at the end of his tenure. I mean, they just missed out on guy after guy, and there was reasons for all of them, and you could explain all of them.
No pun intended.
Yeah. Well, yeah. and but at the end of the day, you look at all that talent that came through, and you didn't get, hardly any of them. And the perception of that ends up mattering,
Yep.
Whether it's, whether it would have made a big difference or not. The perception ends up hurting you. So it does matter to a certain extent, but I always think, like, if you have a group that you have no Indiana guys in your starting lineup and you're going to the Final Four, I mean, who cares? I mean, that doesn't really matter to me.
Trey Kaufman going to Purdue. Not that Archie needed any more help, I think, on his way out, but that was probably potentially the final nail in his coffin with a lot of people, because Indiana does not lose Southern Indiana recruits. And that was a big time miss, a major miss, because if they had him in the fold right now, there wouldn't be as much consternation about Trace Jackson Davis and what happens if he does leave. What are they going to do? And this, that, and the other thing, because whereas Purdue is kind of set up with at least 4 big men right now that in succession to play, Indiana is not quite in that, doesn't have that luxury.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just, there is that, and there's probably other things too that go into it. Obviously, just the winning and losing, and what your program looks like on the court at times too, obviously. But yeah, I mean, they're recruiting the perception, and I think perception from also people kind of negatively recruiting your program as well. That plays a big role in things as well. And but I don't know, it's like I said, to me, it's more about who you're getting, who fits your program rather than where they come from. But yeah, if you have a history of never missing on this area of the state, and all of a sudden a kid goes to your rival school up the road, and you're kind of scratching your head about that, then that obviously doesn't help from a perception standpoint, no matter what he really ends up doing on the floor.
What do you have coming up next? I know you've got that great article out right now that people need to go read about Trent Sisley at the Indy Star. What else you got coming up? I know you're going to try to cover a game tonight, but that looks like that's going to be a snowball's chance in hell effort.
Yeah, I'm sort of doubting it. Even if there is a game, I'm thinking maybe that's not a very smart move. But I think I'm going to have a story on. There's a female coach who's coaching boys basketball at Daleville, Indiana, and I went up there a couple of days ago, talked to her, the principal, the kids on the team, her assistants, and I think it would be a pretty cool story coming out tomorrow morning about her coaching there and coaching a boys team. And very rare. It has happened before, but she's the only female coaching boys basketball right now in the state, and it's pretty rare. So I think pretty cool story. And their team is actually doing really well too. I think they're 8-5 right now, and have had a good season so far. Really fun style that they play, get up and down, and she's really was fun to talk to her, and hopefully opens some doors for other women who might want to coach boys basketball.
Man, that does sound interesting. Looking forward to it. Kyle, I can't thank you enough, man. Stay warm, stay safe, stay inside. That's what I would do.
I'm planning on it.
Appreciate you, man. Kyle
right.
Neddenriep from the Indy Star. Give him a follow and be a subscriber. I am. We've got lots more coming up. Dustin Schutte, Saturday Tradition. We'll be back with him and his beautiful mug right after this. Brought to you by our good friends from Remax Realty. If you're in the Indianapolis area looking for a home, you need Cheryl Sizemore's 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference in you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. We're back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Start the new year out. What do you got going, Dustin? Let's talk about your stuff.
A quick question while he's thinking, if you can hear me. Well, now you just stepped away, but was that conversation at the beginning with Kyle, was that mostly about Trent Sisley? Or who was that about? Because I didn't catch the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, the bulk of the conversation was.
Okay. Because when I started paying attention, I was like, man, I can't think of who he's talking about. Because, I'm trying to make the graphics for later.
Stuff I'm working on. Great question.
Nothing. It's the off season. No, I'm kidding.
Well, actually, my column tomorrow might have plenty to talk about.
Do you still do shooting from the hips weekly?
Yep. Well, for the most, I think I've missed 2 weeks since the start of the off season. One because of travel, and the other because there was literally nothing.
Yeah.
But I think, and it's not. It used to be like 5 sections. Now I've got some leniency. So if it's just like one topic, then I just write about one topic instead of doing L5. But this week, Kevin Steele spurned Maryland at the last second, which is a big deal. Jim Harbaugh stuff. All these coaches denying using NIL to their advantage for recruiting is bizarre.
Yeah. It's almost like they're trying to prove that they didn't cheat before.
Yeah, which...
Well, they can honestly say that because they got other people doing it for them. They stay out of it. Other people do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're completely hands off. Say, hey, I don't talk about NIL, man. I don't, which is a lie. That's a lie because I guarantee you, even though they have other people doing it, they mention it. If it's an offensive lineman, they're a Texas. Hey, man, you come here, you got a $50,000 NIL deal set up already.
Right.
That's not inducement or anything, but
Indiana has to. I mean, you got to get back to at least 8 wins this year. I think to keep that momentum.
At least 8 or at least 6.
8.
8
wins.
Shoot,
8.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, it was 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to the very warm and cozy Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Dustin Schutte, Saturday Tradition, with me. It does not look that way outside. I cannot tell if it started to snow here or not. I don't know when it's supposed to.
It's not snowing here.
Yeah, I can tell you it's not snowing here.
Hey, at least I'm not playing golf, right? I'm not rubbing that in your face anymore, at least for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, there is that. Could we see Baylor, Gonzaga, UCLA, and Houston back at the Final Four?
What's that? Could we see?
You could, or did Houston make the Final Four last year?
Gonzaga, UCLA, Baylor.
Who was the?
I don't think
team?
It was Houston, was it? Well, I'm blanking on it now.
Me too. But anyway,
Houston wasn't it? It was Houston.
Okay.
It was.
Kelvin Sampson.
Nice call.
But those teams are all still up there. Now, UCLA's run was a little improbable. However, improbable probably should have made the championship game.
Right.
Should have beaten Gonzaga, or it could have. They got beat on that last second shot. Or it took, I can't remember if that sent them to overtime or whatever happened. But those 4 teams back this year.
Yeah.
You got Baylor, Gonzaga, UCLA, Houston, all either in the top couple or within the top 6.
And everybody thought that UCLA was going to be, I mean, pretty much everybody expected that to be the case with UCLA this year because of what they had returning from last year's roster. And, I mean, they're continuing to live up to the hype. Gonzaga is always going to be a contender, in my opinion, from this point moving forward. I mean, Mark Few recruits at a high level. They don't have a schedule, so they're always going to get into the tournament. Like, he's always going to win probably 29, 30 games. I'll give Gonzaga some credit, though. They've really upped their non-conference schedule. Like, they play some really good competition in the non-conference.
Well, they certainly couldn't have downgraded it.
Well, but they could have coasted. I mean, you could have coasted.
I'm kidding. I know. Well, they were, but they were starting to, but they're starting to receive a lot of flack from it.
Right.
A and B, it was coming to fruition. Could not win the big game. They all right, keep going.
That's true. That's a good point.
Couldn't beat the big games, and everybody keeps saying because you don't play anybody.
Yep.
And once you play somebody, you get in tight games, you're going to lose. They shouldn't even made it to the championship game last year. A half court, shot
You're right.
to manage that. So they were lucky to even make it that far. I shouldn't say lucky. They're a good team. I'm not saying they're not, but they don't play a Big 10 schedule. They don't play a Big 12 schedule.
Right.
Let me tell you, go through that meat grinder. That changes you. It would make you better. So they need to upgrade their schedule. Speaking of one who's not going to make the tournament, Tom Crean, probably going to be out of a job. 1-9 in the SEC this season. His only win coming over at Alabama.
I have all teams.
Yeah, unbelievably. But you know what? That's the only team he can beat. That up tempo type team. I guess that's the only one he can beat. But
you know what's weird though? I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong to fire Tom Crean at Georgia. I mean I don't follow Georgia basketball that closely.
It depends on if you want to win or not.
Okay, but have they ever won?
Did Alabama win? Alabama wasn't a winning basketball program.
They had some winning seasons. They would at least make the tournament. When was the last time Georgia even made the? Hold on, I'm going to Google this. It's probably going to be like 2019 or whatever.
Actually, Alabama was good like in the 2000s.
Right, I remember
they had a high seed now, like 2014 or something, but they don't have a history. I mean, they've gotten there before.
There's nobody in the SEC outside of Kentucky that really has much of a history.
Florida, but theirs was a big peak. That was a peak and boom.
That was Billy Donovan.
Yeah, that was boom, boom, and over, never to be recaptured. But yeah, it's
kind of like
you're in the Atlanta area, man. You've got the Atlanta recruiting base. There's no way. I don't care. I couldn't care less if they fire him or not. I really don't. I have no interest either way. I don't want to see someone lose their job. So whatever.
You know what was funny? I was driving home from the Kennesaw State game earlier this week, and I turned on my radio, and there he was, talking on his. I don't know if I guess his weekly radio show. Tom Crean. It was as if I was living in Indiana again. Oh, they just got waxed by Arkansas. 99-73. That's not good.
Waxed by a lot of people. Yesterday was the end of the not the end, the beginning of the late signing period. And in the break, you were talking that Indiana needs to get back to 8 wins. I do not see that path.
Isn't that crazy? Let me just first of all, let me just say how crazy that is, because coming into the 2021 season, we were talking about Indiana maybe getting 9 to 10 wins with a bowl win. And now after a 2-10 season, it's like, I don't know that they can get to 6 or 7 wins. What I meant was I think they need to get back to 8 wins. Look at the recruiting class they're bringing in. Yep. There's been some momentum for this program trending in the right direction. I no longer think that just getting to a bowl game accomplishes what they want to accomplish.
I agree.
I think you have to get now 7-5, and if you get into a decent bowl game and you win that bowl game, guess what? You hit that 8-win total. I agree with you that the schedule is difficult, but they need to figure out a way to sustain.
And that's with 7 home games. It's difficult. It's extraordinarily difficult with 7 home games.
I'm just saying, if you want to sustain what you have in the recruiting trail, if you want to continue to be in that top 3 or 4 of the Big Ten, well, not continue. If you want to get back to the top 4 of the Big Ten East, you have to get to 8 wins, because Michigan State's on the rise. Jim Harbaugh's sticking around. Ohio State isn't going anywhere. Purdue got a lot better last season. The recruiting in the Big Ten, especially with these coaches sticking around, is going to get a lot more difficult. Brett Bielema at Illinois. Obviously, you have some
Indiana's opener next year.
You got Marcus Freeman now at Notre Dame, and he's a pretty solid recruiter. He was at at Purdue under the Darrell Hazel area, so he knows the area and the recruiting. I'm just saying it has to get better quickly. I'm not saying that they will hit 8 wins. I think that just to sustain the momentum that they picked up in this year's recruiting class, they have to have a year like they did in 2018.
I agree that they've got to get back minimum to a bowl game, but that's what I see as their ceiling personally. You've got Illinois at home to open the season opening the season against another conference opponent, but you got to win that one. You got to beat Idaho and you got to beat Western Kentucky to open the season 3-0. Those are 3
which is not impossible, by the way.
No, it's not impossible. You win the first one and you damn well better go 3-0.
Right.
But then that 4th game, you've got to go on the road for a non-conference game to Cincinnati. Now, Indiana should have beat Cincinnati last year.
Correct.
I still don't think Cincinnati was that good as they were made to be. I don't think they're going to be as good next year as they were this year. So getting a win over them, that would put them at 4-0 and then you could be 4-0 traveling to Nebraska. Now, if they're able to get that win at Cincinnati, that changes things because I don't have that as a win at the moment. But that would change that. That would give me a 7th win for them. I don't have them winning at Nebraska at the moment. Now this will change. I don't know what Nebraska has. I don't know what Indiana has. I mean, I know what they have, but I don't know what they have. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback. How good is this Barzak? I mean, there's just too many questions right now.
You should have a pretty good idea who this Indiana team is heading into that Nebraska game. But the way I look at it is it's hard to say it's a toss-up, but I would say that winning on the road at Nebraska is not impossible. Beating Purdue at home is not impossible. Beating Rutgers in Maryland is not impossible. So if you beat Illinois and you go and you win, at least let's say they lose to Cincinnati, but you win 2 of your conference games, right there alone is 7 wins. So that's why I say it's difficult because we saw how bad this team was last year. There's no doubt about it. And Maryland's getting better. Rutgers is getting better. Nebraska's getting better. All these teams are getting better. Illinois is getting better. It's not impossible, but again, it goes back to me. You had this program heading in such a positive direction, and you don't want the perception to then become same old Indiana. We had 2 or 3 good seasons, and then it's back down in the toilet. You have to be competitive on the field if you're going to continue to be competitive in recruiting, and with the transfer portal, like the top end players, you've already seen it. Some of these players are not going to stick around if you're going to go 2-10. They're just not. They're going to leave after 1 season, especially if they're not playing.
Absolutely, because they can find more joy not playing on a winning team if you're not going to play. I get it. What are you working on? We talked in the break. What you got going right now?
Yeah.
Off-season magic.
Always working on the off-season magic. Well, I mean, there's plenty to talk about. I'll have my shooting from the hip column come out at some point on Friday. I mean, there's some big news in the Big Ten. Kevin Steele, the longtime SEC defensive coordinator, was thought to be headed to Maryland, and I thought that his arrival, Maryland's defense has been so bad, I thought that made them a top 3 or 4 team in the Big Ten East when you consider what they have coming back offensively. He turned his back on Maryland at the last second and is now going with Mario Cristobal down to Miami. So that's a huge loss for the Terps. We talked about Indiana getting back to 8 wins. Nebraska got some big recruits during the early signing period. A bunch of these head coaches, particularly Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, denying that they're using NIL opportunities to help them in recruiting, like so vehemently denying it that it makes me believe that they are using it in recruiting. I don't know why. First of all, it's legal. I don't know why you wouldn't. But for whatever reason, all of these head coaches are denying the fact that they're using it to their advantage. I don't understand.
They want to claim that their recruiting prowess is why that they're doing so well, and it's not the money.
Yeah, but that's not the case. So I'm
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm throwing it out there.
Let me back off that a little bit. Nick Saban doesn't need that to recruit. He does. He's proven he can recruit. He's proven he can win nationals. He doesn't need it. So I would believe him more. The other part of that is
he's proven that they know how to use the NIL before the NIL was the actual NIL.
I will not make a comment.
Exactly.
Jimbo Fisher, but like to me, why would you not utilize that? They just brought in the highest ranked recruiting class in history, I believe. Like Rivals, 24/7, ESPN. I think all across the board, it's the highest ranked recruiting class by any recruiting website. And you're telling me that it happens the same year that there's the first year of NIL opportunities, and that didn't have just a little bit of something to do with it? Like, I understand they beat Alabama, but Texas A&M has not won the SEC. Texas A&M has not been to the college football playoff. What did they finish last year? 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't have the schedule in front of me. So they're a good team. Jimbo Fisher's a great coach, but it's not like they're not Georgia. They're not Alabama. They're not LSU in 2019.
But they all want to be that. They all want to be that, and their boosters all want to be that.
I understand. And so, exactly. So use the NIL to your advantage, which is what they did. I
think that maybe it's because of the, God, I hate using this same example over and over, but maybe they don't want to be the Texas that has the $50,000 offensive lineman NIL deal set up, which again is freaking not legal.
Well,
or not under the rules, or doesn't it's whatever.
I don't know what the rules.
I don't know.
Let me rephrase. I don't know what the rules are, and I don't think anybody knows what the rules.
It's not supposed to be an adult, and it's not supposed to be able to be a flat out inducement. And there's no other way that an unnamed NIL package is not an inducement.
But see, this is where I had problems with it in the first place. Like, how would you rule? How would you decide what's inducement and what's not?
Money's a pretty damn good inducement, $50,000. I mean,
I understand, but
then
there's
we're back to
there's very little guidelines.
I know, but then that puts us back to what's porn and what's not porn. You know, back when they decided what was porn,
when I say
because no, exactly, and that's what that is what the rule. That's what the defining line was. It was what is normal. There were no hard and fast black and white descriptions. It was a very murky gray thing, so that's why it's like, all right, well
let me, I think part of this is based on how the NCAA got its ass kicked in the whole NIL thing in the courts. I think that they want to stay out of it. I don't think they want to legislate it, because
of course they want to stay out of it.
Different states are going to come in and say that we don't consider this inducement, or we don't, whatever the rule is or whatever the law might be. And they're just going to lose complete control of it. Not that they have control over it in the first place, but why would the NCAA, after getting its head kicked in over this NIL stuff in the first place, then try to legislate it? Because there's going to be issues where they could be sued for, basically not allowing somebody to profit off their name, image, and likeness, whether it's used for inducement purposes or not. So I don't think that you can legislate it in any really true regard unless you just see a head coach hand a kid a couple $100 and say, why don't you come to, Southeast State? I don't know how else you're going to legislate it.
We got to take a break. The great Chris Denari is up next. The Pacers had a tough one last night with the Magic. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Whether it's a celebration. Boy, that was fun. Good morning, Chris.
How's the snow globe down there? Well, not where Dustin is. Dustin doesn't know where snow is.
It's an ice rink in Louisville.
It's snowing pretty good here now.
We don't have the snow yet. We just got but we have everything's covered in ice. And then we just had a little bit of snow on top of it, but I'm waiting for this next band to come through that's coming up from Texas or wherever. I haven't even looked at.
Yeah, it's this morning it didn't look too bad, but now, I mean, it's snowing. I mean, there's a significant amount on the ground. It'll, if it does this all day,
Which it's supposed to, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We'll probably have 6 to 8 inches, I guess.
That means we'll have half that. No, I mean,
hey, we were playing 6-4 and under basketball last night. When Isaiah Jackson went out with 22 seconds into the game, our tallest player was 6'6".
Oh man.
Terry Taylor was playing center, who I don't think, had anybody heard of Terry Taylor last year at Austin P, but my gosh, I'll give the guy, he battled. He had 24 points, 15 rebounds. He's 6'5".
Man.
I always think this happens. Well, maybe it's happened more this year than in years before because the Pacers are not good right now. They've had Isaiah Jackson's had big games. Lance Stevenson's had big games. Dwayne Washington Jr.'s had big games.
Yeah.
At this point, that's what I'm hoping for. I just want a great individual performance, and I don't even care about the end result.
Yeah, I mean, here was an interesting storyline about Isaiah Jackson. In his 18 games that he's played, he's had 8 alley-oop dunks. We had 8 alley-oop dunks all of last year. So from the standpoint that he just gives the Pacers something that they haven't had. I mean, that's you're sort of you're encouraged by the young guys just because it's fresh. You get to see what they do. I mean, again, I'd like to see these young guys with Sabonis and, that type, because I think Sabonis brings the best out of people, especially offensively. But, I mean, last night was just, not two not good teams, but young, talented players. I mean, Suggs, Wagner, Wendell Carter. I mean, there were a lot of talented players on the floor. They just, are teams that they can't win right now.
Right.
All right, here we go.
Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Welcome back to the warm confines of the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you, Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition, and we are joined by the great Chris Denari from the Indiana Pacers. Rough loss last night, but they had a win the night before that, so Indiana's kind of battling with the whatever makeshift lineup they can get on the floor, Chris.
Yeah, the last 2 games, 10 total players, 5 rookies, and it resulted in a win against the Clippers team on Monday. That is in the play-in situation. They don't have Kawhi Leonard. They don't have Paul George, but they're about a 500 team, and they've got a lot of talent. Last night was a situation you're playing Orlando, who hasn't won a lot of games. They had just lost to Chicago the night before in a relatively close game. They've got Jalen Suggs, who played at Gonzaga, Franz Wagner at Michigan, Wendell Carter Jr. at Duke. I mean, you look at it sort of like a college all-star team. And the Pacers had their 10 again. However, 22 seconds into the game, Isaiah Jackson, the center out of Kentucky, who had 26 points and 10 rebounds against the Clippers, sprains his ankle. So now you have 9 players. Your tallest player is 6'6", because you don't have Sabonis, you don't have Turner, you don't have Batase, you don't have Jackson, and you lead twice by 17. And I was just looking, you have a 9-point lead with about 3.5 minutes to play, and you can't hold on to it, and you get beat. So, it was an interesting night. The weather was crummy. The crowd wasn't very good. Now the weather here where I am in Carmel, just north of Indianapolis, is even crummier. So Dustin is just smiling. He probably has a tea time, set for noon. But no, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you like the fight. I mean, Terry Taylor is a 2-way player from Austin P, 6'5", plays a lot bigger than that. And he had 24 points and 16 rebounds off the bench. So it was an interesting night. And Dustin and I, we were talking through the commercial break. You're just looking for those individual performances that you hope will build on the future.
And Chris, to me, I like watching these guys, especially the young guys. And this isn't anything about veterans or players who have been in the league a while, but I always feel like the young guys, they're trying to prove something. They're trying to get their next contract. They're trying to get a roster spot and secure their spot on the team. And I just think, like, at this point in the season, when you have so many injuries, when you have guys that started out, weren't even on, as members of this team, you're just trying to find those little sparks of life for maybe next season at this point. Like, this isn't the Indiana Pacers we thought coming into the 2021-22 season. This team has been hurt by injuries. So I agree. Like, I'm sure it's not fun to sit there and call some of these games when they blow a 17-point lead, or, you know, you give up over 150 points to Charlotte and things like that. But at the same time, I've been very encouraged by some of these players. We've seen Isaiah Jackson have a big night. Dwayne Washington Jr. has had a couple nights where he's been unstoppable from behind the 3-point line. Lance Stevenson, I'll never forget that, 20-point first quarter when he returned to Indianapolis. So I just think that, and Terry Taylor last night stepped up in a big way. I just think that there are some encouraging signs. And if you like individual performances and watching guys ball out, I still think that the Pacers have some of those guys on the roster right now.
Yeah, and we saw that Monday night in Dwayne Washington Jr. Hit 4 threes down the stretch. To your point, Dustin, I'm looking at last night. There was a closing lineup. You had LeVert, who is your lone starter out there, and a guy who you knew was going to be there. But he was joined by Lance Stevenson, who was signed to the roster in early January, Kiefer Sykes, who was signed to the roster in December, Terry Taylor, and Dwayne Washington Jr. So 4 of the 5 guys, when the season started back in October, were not going to be a part of your top 10. And so those were guys that were closing a game down the stretch. So it's just what you have to live with. The Pacers will make no excuses. Every team has injuries. Every team has dealt with the COVID protocol, the health and safety, all those kinds of things. But it is interesting to watch, especially last night when you just had nobody of size on the floor. And at one point, Orlando had 3 guys that were almost 7 feet on the floor. They had Carter Jr., who's about 6'10". Wagner is 6'10" or 6'11". His brother Moritz Wagner came in. He's 6'11". And then they brought in 7'2" Robin Lopez. So, I mean, they had all these towering trees, and the Pacers had a bunch of stumps out there trying to battle with them.
And I always think it's interesting too. And at the NBA level, there's occasionally, you want your best players on the floor, but I do think at some points throughout the course of the season, when you see a lineup that you don't have a lot of film on, I think that plays to the advantage of the Pacers sometimes. And I think that's why they've been able to win some of these closer games, maybe just because of the fact that, like I said, you combine the fact that there's not a lot of film and you have guys that are wanting to work for their next contract or earn a roster spot, whether it's with the Pacers or some other team. I feel like in some cases they're just putting it all out there on the floor. It's almost like watching, a college basketball game where there's a lot of draft stock at stake.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. And it comes down, the game of basketball, as we know, comes down to making shots. And can you continue to make shots throughout the game? And I thought the Pacers did a really good job of that. And maybe with that is that Orlando is dealing with lineups or rosters that they haven't seen. And I thought they probably made some defensive adjustments at halftime. Remember, Jamal Mosley, who is Orlando's coach, he was an assistant to Rick Carlisle for 7 years. So he understands what Rick is trying to do out there. And maybe that's a reason why in the second half, the Pacers could not sustain what they were doing offensively. Again, they shot over 50% in the first half, and they were in the low 30s in the second half. So clearly the shots that they were getting in the first half were going in. And I thought the quality of shots in the second half wasn't as good as what we saw in the first half. And that led to some missed opportunities as well.
And the thing that I hear of late with the NFL that is you got to give the Pacers so much credit as we're sitting here talking about them battling in these games, coming up with wins at times with a lineup that they probably have no right winning an NBA game with. But yet now we've got NFL coaches claiming some of their owners have offered them cash to lose games in order to bolster their draft stock. And we've talked about the fact that Indiana has never been in that position because they just haven't tanked. Last year, they could have tanked, and, man, they battled. Right now, they could tank. It's easy. You could tank without even look like you're tanking. And they're not. They're fighting their ass off. And that's ignored, and it should actually be I don't know if it should be rewarded because that's the right thing to do, but I think it's being ignored, and I think it needs to be acknowledged.
Well, I think the one thing the NBA has done, and this is where I give the NBA credit. I mean, I think building the play-in situation gives more teams an opportunity to pursue a playoff opportunity. And with the lottery, it's not just based on record. Now, sure, the team with the worst record is going to have the highest percentage of getting the number one pick, but it's not a lock. And again, you look at the NFL, it's all based on record. If you have the worst record, you're going to get the number one pick. So I think the NBA has tried over the years to do the best that they can to make it equitable and fair. But at the same time, you want competition. And if you have fans going to games that are paying ticket prices that they're paying, they want to see players and coaches giving it their all. And I would agree with you. I mean, that's been the mantra of the Pacers, especially since the Simons bought it nearly 40 years ago. They've not had a single-digit draft pick. They're probably looking at that where we are right now. But they've done a really good job over the years. I mean, we were talking about this. I was walking out with some people last night. They did it when I started in 2006. Those first 4 years were not very good. The team really turned with the 2010 draft when they got Paul George and Lance Stevenson. They had already drafted Roy Hibbert, and then in free agency they added David West, and they made the trade to get George Hill. Those were basically your 5 starters on the team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals in 2013 and 2014. So they built it with that. They never had a number one pick. They never had a top 5 pick, but they made smart decisions in building the roster and building the team. And I have faith that they're going to do that again. I mean, again, Dustin, I look at this draft class. This is probably as good a draft class as you could have hoped for, where you were picking at 13 with Duarte and 22 with Jackson. And then you add in an undrafted Dwayne Washington Jr. and a guy like Terry Taylor. That's pretty good. Now, is that going to win you a championship? No, you've got to add to that. But if you continue to do that, you get some veterans healthy, you figure out what you're going to do. That's how you make the stair step up in the Eastern Conference.
And I don't want to say this is going to probably come across as bad, but I think there's a silver lining when you see some of these players who have, they've been injured. That creates opportunities for Chris Duarte. That creates opportunities for Dwayne Washington Jr. and Isaiah Jackson. And then that gives the front office some opportunities to see, okay, what can we build around? What do we need to add through the draft? What's available that way? Who's coming up on the free agent? What kind of trades can we make? And so I think, as frustrating at times as it's been to watch this team, and I know the injury situation has been a factor, and at times, I'm going to be honest, at times it's looked like effort has been an issue. But I do think that if you're a Pacers fan, there is a silver lining in knowing the fact that these young players have shown a lot of potential. And I think Isaiah Jackson and Chris Duarte, I don't know about the rest, I think those two guys are pretty good foundation pieces. I don't know that they're going to be the all-star type players, but I think that they're absolutely members of a starting lineup that could be a contender in the East.
Well, and I think to your point, what you're finding, since you're in game 50 and not in game 78, where maybe late in the year, other teams are resting key players to get ready for the postseason, and your rookies are playing in the final 4 games of the year against a lesser roster.
Right.
We're talking about the midpoint of the season where there is still a lot on the line. So they're getting experience in late game situations, in close situations that maybe they wouldn't have if you didn't have all these injuries. So to your point, those are the positives that you have to look at. I mean, when it is a tough year, you're always trying to find positives in a season that's not going the right way. But like I said, and you said, I mean, it's tough to be the play-by-play guy for the team that you cover on a daily basis when the season's not going well. As you said, when you give up 158 points.
Yeah.
But I thought last night and on Monday and last Friday in Oklahoma City, those are the things that keep you going, seeing these young guys play, seeing the bright spots, seeing the growth. And those are the things that the front office has to look at as well.
And
Chris, go ahead.
I was going to ask one question about tomorrow's game because I hate the Bulls. I hate going into Baker's Life, Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and a lot of times seeing a lot of red in there. So but what I'm looking at the predictor here, the Pacers have a 55% chance of winning. What are the Bulls bringing? I know the Pacers beat them once earlier in the season, but it's a very different roster, very different lineup for the Pacers. What are we going to expect on Friday night at the Fieldhouse?
Yeah, that'll be an interesting night because you don't know who's going to be available to play. You know that Sabonis is still out, health and safety. Malcolm Brogdon's not close. Turner is out. O'Shea Brissett has missed the last 2 games, and that's hurt because he's at least 6'8" or 6'9". Jackson rolled his ankle. Will you be down to the 9 players that we saw last night? You know, the Bulls are at the top of the Eastern Conference. The last time these teams played, if you remember, DeMar DeRozan threw in the 3-point shot at the buzzer on New Year's Eve to beat the Pacers. Indiana beat Chicago first game of the year by 40 points. You know, it was a huge win, but this is a very talented team. They've got an all-star backcourt in Levine and DeRozan. Nick Vucevic is playing well. The guy to watch is on a real roll right now. You guys followed him when he played at Illinois, is Ayo Dosunmu. He was a second-round draft pick by the Bulls. He's a Chicago native, and the former Illini star is really playing well right now for Chicago.
Well, man, looking forward to that next broadcast coming up. Hope you can get a win, Pacers back on the winning side of things, and hopefully it's warmer and the roads are clear for people to get out to Gainbridge Fieldhouse because that is a home game tomorrow night at 7:00 against the Bulls.
Yeah, hopefully everything, we settled down with the snow. It's coming down pretty good here, just north of Indianapolis, but I would think by tomorrow we should be all set.
Plenty of time. All right, Chris, I appreciate you, man. Get out there and shovel that snow driveway off for the misses.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. The great Chris Denari joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're back with more Dustin Schutte, myself, Jim Coyle, back. Brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurant.
Whether it's a celebration, Indiana is 4th in the Big Ten in combined efficiency.
What's combined efficiency?
Well, I don't know. It's taking it looks like the win percentage with the offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency, and the margin.
See, this is what ticks me off about. This is why I really have no interest in covering basketball, because this kind of crap, I have no idea what any of it means, and I have no idea like how it dictates
this particular stat.
Like, I understand plus minus. That makes sense.
Here's the funny thing is, Wisconsin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th on this list. They're the highest seeded team in the Big Ten right now, and they're 7th on this list.
So how much does that tell you about it? It's probably
which is odd.
Who's number 1?
Very Illinois.
Okay, well that makes sense. What about 2?
Michigan State.
Okay.
Who both have the same record as Wisconsin at 8-2, but Wisconsin's down at 7th. Their offensive efficiency. I lost Wisconsin. The only team that has a lesser efficient team in that group is Indiana. But you move over to defensive efficiency, and Indiana's number 1. And Wisconsin is not. They're like the middle of the pack.
I just think people who look, I'm not that athletic, but I think that people who are also not athletic came up with a bunch of freaking percentages and stats so that they could try to dissect basketball better. And I'm like, just run the offense. How about? If you make shots, you're going to win a lot of games.
Well, that's there's some absolute truth to that. There's a lot of truth to that.
Like points per play makes sense. That's something.
But you have to also defend shots. You have to make shots, defend shots.
Right.
Offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency.
So when people come to when they make an argument with me about basketball and they're like, well, their offensive efficiency is this. I'm like, okay, well, then they should probably shoot the ball better. Like, are they getting shots at the basket? I could go on a tangent. I just hate the way we nitpick every freaking thing.
All right, here we go.
And a basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Aurora Specialty Sleep Clinic. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington and Southern Stone Restaurants.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday. I hope you are warm and defrosted. Of course, all of our listeners down in South and Florida and all that, they're having a grand old time laughing at us probably. Looking at some numbers here we were talking about in the break, but I look at these and I can just see Indiana is their bread and butter, which not that we didn't know this, but it really is the defense. Because offensively, when I look at comparatively to the other top Big Ten teams, Illinois, Michigan State, Purdue, Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin, even Iowa, Indiana is less than all of them. Minnesota is a tenth of a point better than Indiana offensively on the offensive side. And there's enough games now that matters. But defensively, Minnesota is the polar opposite of Indiana, and defense will win all the time. But Indiana is making their bread and butter on they are the best defensive efficient team in the Big Ten. And that has covered up some flaws that they just have to fix through recruiting that they knew were there. So Mike Woodson did the genius thing. He learned from a coach that their teams were always defensively great, because what is the mantra? Defense wins championships, baby. And it does across the board. So Indiana doing a superb job on the defensive side. So good that it is offset a very an average offense, I'll call it. It's an average offense. They've got great inside play. Perimeter play can be suspect. But again, it's enough to where they're better than average as a team.
Well, all you have to do is look at Virginia. Look at Wisconsin. Look at Purdue. Some of these teams that even when they don't have talent, what do they rely on? They rely on defense. And in the past, Wisconsin and Virginia primarily, not so much Purdue, but they've done it in the past. They'll win games 42-40. They don't care. They are that good defensively. And nobody wants to see that kind of basketball. It's so boring to watch. But if that's how Indiana has to win some games, that's how they're going to have to win some games. Now, their offense is usually a lot better to where they're not having to win games quite that ugly. But at the same time, to your point, it comes down to making shots and defending shots. And Indiana's doing half of that better than anybody else in the Big Ten. Now, you just got to improve the shooting, and when they're hitting shots, they could beat as we've seen already, they can beat anybody in the Big Ten. If they're not hitting shots, they can lose to anybody in the Big Ten.
That's the difference. That's this team right here. Their defense is usually there. It's the offense. And that is a difference right now between this team being an upper, they're in the upper lower half of the Big Ten, but that is the slight difference in them being, and actually being one of the teams that's competing for the championship right now.
Well, I don't even think they're out of it. Do you? I mean,
they're not out. No,
right.
they're not out. But I'm saying it's the difference between them being right now, instead of being in 7-4 with 4 losses, the teams they're leading it have 2 losses. That little bit difference, that is the slight difference in their offensive efficiency, which is not vast, but it doesn't take a wide swath because it's going to be easier to make up. Next, I'm talking about next season as you continue. The die is cast. This program, defense, the hallmark, the guys that you have coming back next year already have that defensive intensity. You're bringing in better players, Jalen Hood-Schifino, better offensive players. That's how and why this program, I see it just on a upward trajectory.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, this team is not that far off from being tied for first place. They are a collapse at Wisconsin away, and a close loss to Penn State on the road away from
Iowa.
I think
they could have won. The Iowa game was one that they let it go.
They could have won that game. I think the Michigan game is the one. I just think they put so much into that Purdue game that they weren't going to beat Michigan on that day because of all the emotion in that Purdue game.
They were so emotionally drained. The crowd was not the same, man. I'm telling you, I was there both times. Now you could feel the difference. The crowd did not have the energy that they had the time before. So yeah, it was, and Michigan didn't exactly lob up shots over their head backwards. They were just lighting it up.
Yeah. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you catch a team on the wrong day and they just can't miss. And that's life in the Big Ten. And we can say ifs and buts, but I think, look, I looked up this statistic. Archie Miller, in his 4 years at Indiana, never won more than 9 Big Ten games. Not once did he win more than 9 Big Ten games. Indiana's 7-4. They've got 9 Big Ten games left. If they win just 3 of those, they'll hit 10, and they would have surpassed any total they hit in Big Ten play at any point under Archie Miller. I mean, the job that Mike Woodson has done with I shouldn't say essentially the same roster, because they brought in Miller Kopp, they brought in Xavier Johnson, they've got some new pieces, but the confidence he's instilled in this team to win some of these close games down the stretch. I know that there's still some shooting issues, but to me, this is a tournament team. Like, I think they're going to get to the NCAA tournament, and just how quickly he was able to do that, I think shows how much talent has been on this team and how much of it was mismanaged and poorly coached for the past 4 seasons.
Well, the confidence. I mean, unfortunately for Rob Finney going down with the injury, but the confidence he has gained. Race Thompson, much better player. Not that he wasn't playing well before. He always gave an effort, but every one of these players I think they're better developed. Now, Trey Galloway is Geronimo. They're all going to be impactful players. They are impactful players, but they're going to be impactful players as they continue to grow. And that's the thing. People can let Woodson and crew, they know what the hell they're doing. Trust me, no one bitched about Archie more than I did. I promise you.
Right.
But there was a reason to. There was nothing that I said that was not true. There's nothing to complain about here. Do you think I was complaining just to complain? No, it was factual. I look at the facts, man, and the facts are the Indiana basketball program is on an upward trajectory, and already it's ahead of, I think where realistically people thought it should, or where realistic people thought it should be, I should say, because they don't deserve to be in the top 4 with all the problems that they had, but they brought in the right staff that has done the right things, and they have put themselves in that position to do that very thing.
Well, and I think it gives a ton of credit to Mike Woodson. Look, like basketball is basketball. I know the NBA game is different than the college game, but so I understand from this perspective. But for him to come in with no college coaching experience, to come in and do what he's done, to assemble the staff he assembled, to get how many players entered the transfer portal after Archie was fired? It was like 5, 6, 7?
Half the team.
He was able to get most of those guys to come back. He was able to pull in some big time transfers. He's done a great job.
And Al Durham was not recruited by Archie. He was recruited by Crean. So you can't blame Al Durham, who's gone on to Providence and he's doing okay. The one that I still don't get the Armand Franklin. I think that was a mistake, but that's his decision, whatever. I think he would have been much better off here. And I think Indiana may have been better off with him as well. But oh well, it is what it is. Jonathan says the offense will be tested on Saturday against the Illinois team, especially their guards play. Let's hope X has a great day and outside shooting. Decision-making continues for the backcourt. Xavier Johnson is a gigantic reason why this team has been playing much better lately. He has really accepted his role. It seems more as a point guard. He is just, even when he went what, 1 for 5 the other day, he had 9 assists.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty high number. That's 18 to, if there's 3-pointers on there, who knows? That could be up to 25 points right there. That's a third. That's a third of the scoring, man. So
yeah, when you have it completely changes the game when you have an unselfish point guard and a guy who recognizes. And I watched only a little bit of the game, so I didn't see as much of it. But I think when you recognize that it's not your night shooting, sometimes shooters have to keep shooting. But sometimes it's good to recognize, hey, I've got other guys around me who are playing well. Let's distribute the ball. Let's not, take poor shots just to be shooting the basketball. And I think that this team does that better now than they have in the past. I think at times under Archie Miller, you would see guys just jack up threes just to get shots up, basically, for no other reason. And 9 assists to 1 turnover. I mean, you're going to win a lot of basketball games when you have a point guard that does that.
Dude, that's another thing. Not only has he cut down on his turnovers, the team itself. I don't think I've ever seen a team that had 3 games in the same freaking season with 20 plus turnovers. That is a lot. That's a lot. 27 turnovers against a basic Division II team. I forget who was it. The North Carolina team. They had 27 turnovers against. I forget who it was against, but that's just. I'm like, how is that even possible? And then to have 3 against Purdue,
right?
It's a tough game, man. And getting a team together that was not together before just took a while, and they're getting there. Jason's concerned about the early Saturday game. It is a noon game with the bad weather. They'll need a good crowd for Illinois. You know what? The roads, they should be cleared by then. The snow's all coming today. That gives whether they're up in Indianapolis or wherever to clear the roads off, that they ought to be good by then.
I don't care if it's in the middle of a hurricane. Indiana basketball fans are going to find a way to get their ass to Assembly Hall and find their
for
seat.
This game, especially for an Illinois game with. I wish it wasn't at noon. I do agree that for people travel, but I think that Saturday it's the weather should be fine by then. So there you go. Looking forward to that, and I think it will be a great game. Illinois coming off of a hard-fought win. Did that zap them?
It's going to be a test because the one advantage is Indiana's had a week to prepare for this, to prepare for Illinois, and Illinois is on. It's a typical Big Ten week for them, a Wednesday game and a Saturday game. So it's a short drive, but I think that the week off to prepare for Illinois favors Indiana. Not saying they're going to win, but I think that gives them a better shot to win.
Oh, absolutely. They're rested. You get healthy. It's rare to get a week off this time of year. I was shocked. I'm grateful for it. I'll be honest with you. I'm grateful for the week off.
It's really for the
and not saying that, and it's not even off but not having to travel to go to game that's off to me.
Right.
It's like, wow. But great day, another great show. Always, of course, whenever you're on, it's a great show. Big fun always. Cannot thank Kyle Neddenriep enough. Chris Denari as well. But Dustin Schutte always brings the party, and looking forward to it. What's coming up next for you, man?
Like I said, sometime tomorrow I'll have shooting from the hip, and I'll have a couple different things from Big Ten signing day, some coaching changes, and then Saturday down south we're doing some fun video stuff. I've got a couple Big Ten videos up, so on YouTube you're already here. Check that out. I've got we did the breakdown of the Jim Harbaugh stuff, Urban Meyer talk, the Caleb Williams debacle, and we just did a rundown of the top 5 Big Ten games from the last season. So a lot of fun stuff.
John, what's on tap for tomorrow, man?
We'll have Alec Lasley. We're going to have our friend
from the Hoosier.com. So we'll be previewing the Illinois game. Zach Osterman from the Indy Star will also help us preview the Illinois-Indiana game.
And then hopefully we'll have our friend Jeffrey the Greek back tomorrow.
Looking forward to that, man. We got to get you on sometime with the Greek.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
It's just a fun fest. We don't even have to have anything scheduled to talk about. It just turns
that could be
fun.
Dangerous.
That's what makes it fun, man.
That's true.
You gotta live on the edge a little bit sometimes. Well, man, I cannot thank everybody enough. Like I said, thanks to all the guests, but most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we don't have a reason to be here. Thanks to John, the producer, as well. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again, and hope you're here with us, especially if you're snowed in. Just snuggle up next to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We'll be there with you. And until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.